On set to discuss this latest development is France 24's international news commentator, Leela Jacinto. Leela, welcome. Now, I have to start right off with the most obvious question. Why now? It's 12 years after Syria was expelled from the Arab League. Why are there moves to restore the membership now?
Well, Catherine, to answer that question, you have to look at the broader context as well as the immediate factors. In the broader context, back in 2011, when the Syrian uprising broke out, the primarily Arab Sunni states supported the opposition against the Assad regime, which was backed by Iran. 12 years on, Assad has pretty much regained control of most of the country besides a few enclaves. And what's important is that the attitudes towards Tehran are shifting. And these are, dramatic diplomatic shifts. The ground is really changing dramatically. Now, last month, China brokered a deal between Iran and Saudi Arabia. Okay, when these sanctions were imposed, if you remember, there were tensions between Iran and Saudi Arabia. Now that this deal has been brokered by China, the tensions against Tehran have been easing. Another thing that's happening, which we saw with this China deal, was that there is a perception in the Middle East that the U.S. is disengaging from the region. Now, Washington denies this, but there is very much a sense that the diplomacy in this region is now being pushed by players like China and Saudi Arabia. Because the U.S. was the one power that was basically telling the Arab states, don't you dare have Assad back into the diplomatic fold without any accountability for the crimes that happened in Syria. U.S. sanctions are still in place, and they're very tough sanctions. But then we come to the immediate issue of what happened, which was the Turkey-Syria earthquake. When these devastating earthquakes happened in February, the U.S. eased the sanctions so that aid could flow into Syria. And then Washington was sort of caught by surprise by how quickly the momentum to have Assad back into the fold moved. Really this Syria coming back into the fold has happened in a matter of weeks, which is very surprising. But then beneath that, there are, pretty tough geopolitical and socioeconomic issues at stake.
And can you tell us, Leela, what are the other issues that are at stake here?
Well, there are a lot, but if you were to put them in two words, I would say refugees and drugs. The Syrian civil war displaced millions of refugees. And these Arab states are looking for some sort of refugee repatriation back into Syria. Two is drugs. And the drug that we are talking about is Captagon. Captagon is a very highly addictive drug, amphetamine drug. And Syrian President Bashar al-Assad has basically put his country's pharmaceutical industry into producing this drug. This is according to experts. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry, and it has basically been funding the regime. Countries like Saudi Arabia, Jordan are facing a big addiction problem. So they sort of want to engage with Assad on these issues. The big issues of accountability, of the mass rapes, of the immunity are now all on the back street. The countries simply want to work on very specific issues like this.
And very quickly, one last question. What does this mean for the region and the international community?
Well, as I said, it's a matter of impunity. And we have seen, because right now Arab foreign ministers had two issues on the agenda in Cairo, Sudan and Saudi Arabia. What we are seeing in Sudan is the old players who did not account for their atrocities, the problem blows up again. And when this message of a lack of accountability goes out, it's never a resolution to a crisis. So it may not be tomorrow, but we will see problems emerge unless there is any justice and accountability.